Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this Final Four episode of Dave and Fraz. Of course, I'm Davis Gregory here with Aaron Frazier, and in this episode, we're going to be recapping both Final Four games between Villanova and Kansas and Loyola Chicago and Michigan, and we're also going to be recapping the national championship between Michigan and Villanova. So, Aaron, you can start with us. Let's go for Loyola.
Well, Loyola Chicago went up against Michigan, and they played the first half pretty well. They had a 29-22 lead at the half. They were doing well defensively against a very tough Michigan team. But Michigan, as sort of the beginning of the second half started to wear away, you started to see the fatigue kind of settle in for Loyola Chicago for the Ramblers. But those last 10 minutes of the second half, it was all Michigan. And you saw their sensational power forward that's a sophomore, Mo Wagner, who's from Germany, and he just did a terrific job. He had 15 rebounds and 24 points, career high in rebounds, and he just took over the game. And I think at that point, it was just Michigan's game to lose. And of course, they came away with the win, 69-57.
And that, as you mentioned, Wagner's over 20 points and over 10 rebounds in a Final Four game. He joins Hakeem Olajuwon and Larry Bird as the only players to do that in a Final Four game. Now, Villanova and Kansas, absolute blowout. Villanova hit 18 threes in that game, most in a Final Four game ever. And they've also hit the most threes in tournament history over their run here to the national championship. And really, there's nothing more you could say about that game other than Villanova was just an absolute all-around better basketball team than Kansas that night.
And they just have, there's great ball handlers, they're great distributors of the ball, and they did a terrific job in getting all their key players. They have so many key players. They're
exactly.
A deep team, and they all got points, they all got the ball evenly. And then, it obviously helps when you're up 22-4 to open up the game. And so pretty much from there on, they just went on cruise control to beat Kansas.
And now the national championship last night, because we're recording here on Tuesday, Monday night was the national championship between Villanova and Michigan. And in the first half, it was competitive. Michigan was holding in there with Villanova. And then in the second half, Devin Shevchenko, I believe that's how you say his name, had 31 points and 5 rebounds in the national championship game. Crazy stat line for him on the biggest stage in college basketball, as Villanova ran away with the national championship, getting their second championship in 3 years.
And not only did Dante have an amazing game, but I also feel like, you're watching this Villanova team in the beginning. They started off slow. To the halfway point of the first half, they're down 21-14. Michigan was shooting really well, and Villanova is only 1 from 9 from the three-point line. But there's just a switch that went into this team, and for them to go up 37-28 at the half, and for them to hold Michigan from that halfway point of the first half, 3 for 16 shooting from there on, Michigan was just never able to cover. And especially when you go down by 9 points to as good as a team as Villanova, it's hard to make up those points and try and get back into the game, especially when they're starting to catch fire.
And Villanova definitely the most fundamentally sound team, I think, in this entire tournament. And what a dominating run they had. I think one thing for Michigan that kind of really put them at a disadvantage was they didn't really play that much competition going into the Final Four. You play an 11 seed in the Final Four, didn't shoot very well against them. In fact, Villanova shot better from three-point range against Kansas than Michigan did against Loyola. So I think it was kind of clear to pick that winner that Villanova was going to win the national championship. But very impressive for Villanova to win 2 national championships in 3 years.
And Davis, the biggest stat I just want to point out is, what makes Villanova so good, so fundamentally sound, is their free throw shooting.
Definitely, yes.
They're at nearly 80% from the free throw line as a team, and they went 75% in the game. And that's just great comparable to 61% that Michigan went. And then you also look at the three-point statistics. You have Villanova going 37% from beyond the arc, and then you have Michigan going 13%. So it's just the little stats like that the points add up. And Michigan, there's no way they're going to be able to come back when, and just Villanova, once they got up towards, I feel like when there's 10 minutes left in the second half, it was pretty much over. And it was a cruise control win to go up 79-62.
Definitely. And of course, that will conclude our coverage of college basketball this season, as now we'll move in towards the NBA playoffs and the MLB season, which is starting up. But we want to thank you for listening to all our college basketball episodes that we put out. and be on the lookout for our NBA playoff episodes coming up soon. Thank you.
Hello and welcome back to Dave and Fraz. I'm Andrew Cross with Jay Frazier, and today we're going to be giving you a quick overview of the NBA playoffs, which start next week. The big headline on Thursday was Celtics star point guard Kyrie Irving out for the season with a knee surgery. It's not looking good for the Celtics, who have dropped their past 2 games to the Raptors and the Bucks. But do you still think the Celtics can make it to the conference finals, though, Jay?
I'm not sure. Without Kyrie, he's been gone for most of the season, I will say, and Terry Rozier has stepped up big time. But I do think it was a smart decision for them to take Kyrie out of the lineup for the rest of the year. But I don't think they'll be able to make it to the conference finals.
Like you mentioned, Terry Rozier's been playing very well. If they can get all healthy, like Rozier, Horford, Jaylen Brown, if they're all healthy, I think they're a very dangerous team. We'll see. The 3 teams that possibly could play are the Heat, Wizards, and Bucks. Which of those 3 teams do you think is the best of those?
The Bucks for sure. They're a very young, raw, talented team, and I think in a couple of years for sure we'll be seeing the Bucks winning some championships. But right now, I could see them advancing to the conference finals.
Watch out for the Wizards, though. John Wall came back a couple of weeks ago, last week, and he played very well with Thomas Satoransky. So we'll see how the Wizards fare in the playoffs. And in the West, the bottom half is very tight. Nuggets, T-Wolves, Pelicans, Thunder, Spurs, Jazz, and Trailblazers are all separated by 3 games, vying for those final spots. We know Rockets and Warriors are 1 and 2. But I really think the Thunder can come out of that group. They haven't played very well all season. Their defense has been a little bit shoddy. But any team that's got Carmelo Anthony, Paul George, and Russell Westbrook has my attention.
Yeah, I agree with you. Although Paul George the last few games, he's been shooting very bad, especially since the All-Star break, which I find very weird because he was in the 3-point contest. He was shooting like 40% from 3 at the beginning of the year. But now that he's slouched off, I'm thinking the Jazz with Donovan Mitchell, that young guy. I think he can really play. And they have who I think is one of the defensive player of the years in their center this year. So
yeah, Rudy Gobert. He's pretty good on that defensive side, blocking shots for the Jazz out in Utah. Well, we know we just said before that the Rockets are the 1 seed, followed by an injury-plagued Golden State team at number 2. Do you think there's any team in the West that can catch the Rockets in the playoffs? Because I don't think so. With the Warriors not being healthy the way they are, I don't see a team that can stop the Rockets.
If the Rockets do get hot for a stretch in the playoffs, I think they will be unbeatable. I agree with you, actually. But do I think if they do make it to the final game, like the finals, I don't think they'll be able to beat a LeBron James-led team.
Yeah, and LeBron is a totally different animal in the playoffs. It's different. Like the Cavs are not playing very good basketball right now, but as long as they get in the playoffs, you can't count them out. Well, that's all for this episode of Dave and Fraz, and I'm Andrew Cross with Jay Frazier, and we'll see you next time.